Hello, marketer. It's Ty here, and welcome to another episode of Lean Mean Marketing Teams. Thrilled today to introduce our guest, Lucinda Barlow, Senior Director, Head of Marketing APAC for Uber. Lucinda's CV reads like a marketer's fairy tale. She started her career working with Symbian, who were the leading operating system in phones before iOS and Android were developed. Since then, Lucinda has worked for Google, YouTube, and now Uber. And she's worked in the US, UK, Asia, and Australia. Lucinda also holds first-class honours degrees in electrical engineering and computer science and an MBA from INSEAD. It's another jam-packed episode where we firstly explore Lucinda's fascinating background and the lessons she learned early on in her career. We then talk in detail about how Uber pivoted during COVID-19 to shift resource and budget away from mobility and into delivery, and how they can move so quickly at scale due to their strong operations backbone. There's so many lessons around agile and growth mindset, flexibility, and the importance of empathy with your staff and your customers during times of crisis, as well as a key lesson, which is never to waste a crisis. We then explore what Lucinda loves about working in tech and the kinds of people that tech attracts. Diversity is a key feature of this discussion. Next, we unpack how Lucinda's APAC team is structured and her remit around brand and top to middle of the funnel, and how her team works alongside a separate performance team. We discuss the pros and cons of this model, as well as how Uber takes a think global, execute local approach to their marketing. Finally, we discuss how to generate a culture that adapts, takes risks, is creative, thrives in crises, leverages the benefits of multicultural diversity, and develops its leaders. So many takeaways in this section alone. As always, there's a lot covered in the show. So if you're a CMO that likes to spend more time taking action and less time taking notes, then we've got you sorted. Dylan has listened back to the show and made a summary PDF with all the tips and strategies that Lucinda shares. Just head to growthgenerators.io, head to the podcast section, look out for this episode and download the notes. Thank you and enjoy the show.
Welcome to Lean Mean Marketing Teams with Ty Hayes, where you'll hear from leading CMOs and thought leaders about what it takes to create a high-performance marketing team. This podcast is brought to you by Growth Generators, a consulting firm that helps CMOs design and build modern marketing teams that drive growth. If you need help optimizing your marketing team, head to growthgenerators.io. Now, let's get on to the show.
Welcome, Lucinda Barlow, Senior Director, Head of Marketing APAC for Uber, to the Lean Mean Marketing Teams podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ty. It's so great to be on the show.
Yeah, and thanks for taking the time on a little mini break, discussing earlier that you're on the Central Coast having a quick break before the crazy festive period, and we might get to enjoy your break as well. There's some lovely bird sounds in the background, so we can all pretend that we're there with you.
Yeah, there is a surprising amount of wildlife here. So apologies in advance if you hear beautiful birds or crickets or swans or something. It's gorgeous. Yeah.
I love it. Not a bit of soundscape. It's usually just a boring background noise, but it'd be good to have that soundscape. So looking forward to it. Yeah, really excited to have you on the show today. We're going to discuss how to build high-performing teams and cultures. And you've got an incredible track record in doing this, recently awarded as the number 11 CMO in Oz. And you've got some incredible companies and roles on your CV. So I'm very excited. But before we get into it, can you maybe share with us one or two pivotal moments in your career that have had the greatest impact on where you are today?
Absolutely. So the first pivotal moment, I think, was moving from Symbian. Now, Symbian is no more. It was a early manufacturer of smartphone software. This was before Android and iOS. And you may remember a company called Nokia, Sony Ericsson, Panasonic, Fujitsu, all these handset manufacturers that if you had phones in the 90s or 2000s, they were your manufacturer of choice. And I worked for Symbian for about 5 or 6 years. I was based in London. I had a global marketing role. It was fascinating times in the early days of smartphones. But I say it's pivotal because I actually left right before Android and iOS were launched. And Symbian then sort of it was no more within a year. And Nokia went from number one market share of all phones down to just in the teens or in the tens in the matter of a couple of years. While it was an incredible experience, it taught me what happens when you don't diversify and you don't continually innovate. Working at the time, I worked a lot in China and all around the world. And yet there was one operating system which had a very stable revenue stream, $5 for every phone sold. That cannot compete with free. Android was then free. iOS with iPhone completely revolutionized what was possible. So I went from Symbian to Google, and I started at Google at the start of 2009. And I just remember it blew my mind, just the diversity of products, the constant innovation, not resting on its laurels. And my first week, I think I remember coming home and going, oh my God, they've just launched Google Maps underwater and browser. And I just couldn't believe it. And it was so exciting.
Yeah.
So as much as I learned, I also learned, gosh, this is what can happen when you don't diversify and you're not really looking ahead and planning for the future. Other pivotal moment would be, so I'd been working at Google for a long time and heading up marketing for ANZ, which is a fantastic job. Just so much fun. Very close-knit team that I had worked with, my own marketing team, but then also all my cross-functional partners. We'd worked together for years and had really had an amazing track record of innovation and great marketing programs.
Yep.
And I decided to stretch myself a bit and go move the family. I've got 3 kids, husband. We all moved over to the US, and I started in headquarters for YouTube working on a global consumer marketing remit. So I headed up product marketing, culture and trends, responsibility marketing, and also ad supported shows. So quite a broad remit. Yeah. And moving from being in Australia to then headquarters based in the US is just a totally different scale. The first 6 months, I think, was probably the most challenging in my career because it was just so many more stakeholders. Also, even though I'd been working for an American company for a long time, the culture in the US is different from Australia as well. Pivotal moment in that I had to adjust my leadership style significantly. I had to learn a huge amount very quickly, and phenomenal and really exciting times, but definitely a big adjustment. And it definitely opened my eyes to global, what's possible, the complexity of headquarters, made me better leader because of it.
And there's another guy back in Perth now that I know that's spent some time there, and they all talk about their different culture and just the thinking big, the scale of problems that they tackle, and kind of the optimism over there as well, that everyone wants to have a go and everyone wants to change the world.
It's incredible. The optimism is palpable and it's everywhere. It's quite phenomenal. I do think that American spirit is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. And how did your leadership style have to change?
It changed a couple of ways. Firstly, just on difference in culture, the things that I didn't realize that I had to learn. America is, I don't know if it was more America or just being headquarters, but there's definitely more of a directive style, more hierarchical. In Australia, I think we have a very healthy cynicism about hierarchy. And so as a leader, you are more democratic in decision making. In the US, there is just an expectation that you will, as a leader, make the decision. And so you have to get to that point quickly. So that's one. The second is, I think Australians are extremely direct, and we're direct with both positive and negative feedback. In the US, I would say less direct or negative. So I learned that the hard way. And then also just less on culture, but just more on leading in a cross-functional team. This is where YouTube and Google are very product-centric, product and engineering led, and decisions are really made by what is the right thing to move the product forward. And so you have to get very good quickly at understanding product metrics. How are we going to drive more daily active users or monthly active or engagement? Less thinking about sort of commercially what's right, and much more, how is this moving the mission forward? How is this moving the proposition for the consumer forward? And you have to be very good at understanding the metrics and what are the consequences of leaning in on different metrics. Because if you put the whole system behind a metric, you make all kinds of changes along the ladder up to that. But then also having this, you also need to just understand what is the experience for one user and be quite practical. Sitting down with the CEO, who's fantastic, Susan Wojcicki at YouTube, she would, in every meeting, she'd always have her phone out experiencing the product. What does this mean? How am I going to see this as a creator? What does this mean? It was quite refreshing to see that. It was both extremely broad and big thinking and visionary, but at the same time, deeply practical. What does it mean in the product that I can do tomorrow?
Love that. So much in that. Been reading The Product-Led Growth lately by Wes Bush. And I love that kind of connection between getting the product right and looking at the metrics and trying to make the best product, but then still making sure that relates back to the customer and the experience that they have. And I think it's a delicate balance to get that right mix of being product-led but customer-focused.
Yes. Yeah, completely agree.
Yeah.
So I'll have to read that book. I haven't read it.
Yeah, it's a good one. Also interested to see you've got a computer science and electrical engineering background as well as an MBA. But how important was that fundamental understanding been in enabling you to work alongside product and engineering teams and within tech companies?
I think it definitely helped. It helped me, firstly, open my eyes to the world of tech. I'm excited about the possibilities of tech. I am an optimist and believe tech can do great things. And so it definitely helped me there. I think it helped me speak the language of product managers and engineers. But largely, I do think I'm in the right place in marketing. I moved pretty quickly over to the marketing world. And I like to think that marketers can think about and paint the picture of the vision. They can really define where are we going and why. And product and engineering, and particularly engineering, will then look at, okay, what is the best way to get there? How can we get there efficiently at scale? It's interesting, having worked at Google, Google is really product and engineering led. And so I would say someone like Sundar, who's the CEO today, is, of course, he is also painting the vision. He's doing a huge amount of that visionary work, but marketing very much follows. Marketing took 15 years to have a seat at the table at Google to really understand the value that marketing can bring. It took a long time, demonstrating growth on both the brand and the business and product. I've never worked for an organization like an FMCG, which is entirely marketing. Uber is a bit more so, I would say. I think there is, definitely a stronger need from the get-go for marketing to drive the brand and really ensure that it's salient in people's minds today as their next meal online or that they need to order or the next place they want to go.
Fantastic. And last question on the career, but what was it that sparked your interest in marketing and how did you make that shift?
Yeah, I didn't know about it. I think I came from a family of engineers. And my mum has always been an investor in all kinds of different companies. So she's broadened my mind to lots of countries and career options and things like that. But I hadn't thought about marketing. It wasn't until the age of 23. So it's, I think, still very young. I was working for a crazy tech startup. It was a .com web services company, and they put me in charge of, I was APAC tech director for CSP, which was a new e-commerce website in a box. And I had no idea what to be a tech director, and I don't think they knew either, but this 23-year-old in charge, they sent me off to Laguna Beach, Orange County, which is just out of LA, where I met the US team that had worked on this product. And again, it was my first experience working with American culture, very different to what I worked at BHP. It could not be more conventional and more of a traditional Australian heavy industries company. So to go to this new age .com world was so exciting and very strange. All the leaders oversharing and meetings and all the rest. Anyway, I remember being there and figuring out what a tech director did. And I met a marketing manager. And she was this very impressive woman who delivered the presentation to the cross-functional team. She talked about what the proposition was for the customer, what kind of insights, how we were going to help our customers, went through the new brand. She talked through the rollout plan. And I was just blown away. I just thought, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do. It was so creative and at the same time scientific. And I just thought that's a great mix for me. So it was really this one woman. I can't even remember her name, but she changed my life. From that, I ended up going and doing an MBA. And so I got into marketing after that.
Oh, beautiful story. Well, hopefully she listens to this one day and gets in touch.
I hope so.
It was me. But it also talks about different strengths and interests, and you need the engineers, but you need the marketers, and we all bring different things. That's only when you kind of work together that, companies thrive and teams thrive. So, all right. Well, let's get into it then, onto creating a high performance marketing team. Maybe if you can start by just telling us a bit more about your current role in terms of the remit as Senior Director, Head of Marketing APAC at Uber.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So My role is to help Uber play a deeper role in the daily lives and communities here in APAC. So that is in Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, where we have a joint venture, and then India, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh. They're the countries that we cover.
Yep.
And there are two big parts of the business. One is the mobility business, which is where we help you go anywhere every day. And so that means bringing new products, new rideshare products, or lots of different vehicles. It's not just rideshare, it's also taxis that we're bringing onto the platform. Commute options, helping you connect with your transit systems in your cities. And then also in India, we have 2 and 3 wheeler vehicles too, which are very cost effective, safe, etc. So that's the mobility side. The delivery side is helping you get anything effortlessly. So with a touch of a button, we're helping you get online food delivery, but also now groceries, alcohol, and then we will bring all kinds of other products to you in the next hour. Now, our touch of a button, how can we get you whatever you need so you don't have to plan in advance?
Awesome. Not an easy challenge though. Two big categories, I guess, and so many different markets, right?
So many markets, different products in each market. Really exciting. And then, of course, it's also an ecosystem. And so it's not just riders and eaters, consumers that we are going after. It's also how can we bring new earners onto the platform, flexible work? How can we also show you the benefits of having both offerings with memberships? Yeah, so it's always changing. Quite exciting.
Yeah, that two-sided marketplace must be so hard to balance the supply and the demand of both.
Always, especially in this kind of volatile environment where there's so much change going on. Yeah.
And I understand during COVID-19, obviously mobility kind of ground to a halt in many places, while food and essentials experienced unprecedented growth. In your CMO 50 profile, where you were recently ranked number 11, congrats in Australia.
Thank you.
You talked about how you pivoted overnight in response to restructure budgets and teams to ensure Uber was indispensable to consumers' evolving lives through Uber Eats. Can you tell us about that pivot and how you went about it?
Absolutely. Fascinating times. And I've spoken to so many marketers who also say it's definitely been the most disruptive time in their careers. So I know I'm not alone at all in going through something really big. What we saw early on, it was actually Hong Kong, where we don't operate in China, but Hong Kong, we started to see a decrease in demand very quickly in rides. And so that was like the canary in the coal mine. And so we realized quickly, okay, we're going to have to get a sprint team together and figure it out. And globally, this is really Uber's superpower is operations. I talked about Google being engineering a product. Uber, it is quite a pragmatic organization, very flexible and agile. And it's a sort of company where you can set up a marketplace in rural India in a few days. They know how to operate quickly. And so very quickly, they're like, okay, we've got a crisis on our hands. And we put together a global task force. I was the global lead for marketing on that task force. I think I was chosen because of actually having done a lot of crisis response at YouTube. And so this team met every morning, 7 a.m. in Australian time, but it was very important to meet daily. It was important to have cross-functional representation. So we had the head of safety, the key leaders from across the head of product, the head of mobility globally ran it. And so there were key leaders from each department. We also had very clear source of intel. I think it's so important when you're going through any kind of change, any kind of disruption, you need to have a constant source of data and insight, and you've got to be able to understand what you act on and what you don't. And so we had marketing insight coming through. Some of that was focus groups, some from social, some from studies we were running and so forth. So every few days we would have new information coming through. What do our drivers need? We had expert information from experts from health authorities. And then it was an hour-long session every day. We also ran one in region with the leadership team in region at the end of the day. And then I also had sort of daily scrums with my own leadership, my own team, and they did the same with their country team. So I think that regular check-in to make sure everyone's doing well, that decisions are made, everyone can escalate quickly. It also meant you could ladder up very quickly what was happening on the ground. Australia really was very concerned around surface, the safety of touch. And so you surface that information quickly and make the global frameworks and decision making. I like to think about crisis response as a couple of speeds. You have the team that is the immediate crisis response team. They need to be, have clear roles and responsibilities, escalating very quickly, decisions made in the room, meeting regularly, ideally daily. It's quite hard though for that team to step out at all and think about anything beyond next week. And so you then need to have another team. And I had found myself having to think, I would have to actually change my own mode. It was really hard myself when I'm in the thick of things. How do you step out yourself and say, actually, what does this mean for our brand? What does this mean for our budgets and so forth? And so partly that was forced upon us because we needed to make very quick decisions around, we had to reduce our brand budget on the mobility side, particularly overnight and in a very big way. We also saw at the same time the delivery business the demand going through the roof as people were at home. They wanted to have contactless delivery. They wanted to have ways to feed their families. And often they were also going into lockdowns. And so they really needed online food delivery. So we ended up having to pivot resourcing, both budget and people, quickly onto helping pour more fuel on that demand while keeping our earners in the loop as how do they pivot from going from rideshare to delivery. So that was another area. So there's a lot of work to do. I would say that it's really important in crisis to think about the opportunity that you have from it. I have always thought, there's the famous quote, don't waste a crisis. Keep reminding your teams, as hard as this is where brands are made. This is where leaders are made. This is where you will learn so much from this experience. And we're in it together. Let's make the most of it. And so I think I'm really proud actually of things we did as a brand. We were able to social impact grants in pretty much all communities that we operated in. And that also blew my mind. The way that Uber could operationalize, make a quick decision. We unlocked 10 million free rides and meals for people in need. We did things like an earner driver fund in India, where we had employees and our riders getting behind supporting their earners so that they could keep the lights on for their family. Demand went right down. And so people got behind that in a big way. And what I've found coming out of COVID, as demand has recovered on the mobility side, our brand's never been stronger. Our category positions as also stronger. So the sort of the fundamentals were in place. Focus on safety, focus on the impact that you can have in communities, actually listen to customers. What do they need? Thinking about that next tier of the sort of the next speed. Okay, what are we going to do in the next few months coming out of this? And then maybe the next year, what is this going to mean for our brand? And it was important to have separate team working on that. And also if it's yourself, you have to kind of get out of the mindset of crisis mode.
So much in that. I think, what I loved is the cross-functional nature in the emergency crisis response teams, making sure all the right people are in the room. I think the cadence of meeting daily and just the importance of that communication, like frequent, regular communication with the right people, and then making sure that going up and down, following those meetings, that decisions can be made quickly and in the room.
Being very empathetic, really understanding what your teams are going through, of course, what your customers and your owners and restaurants. I mean, restaurants were going through such a terrible time at that time too. And having a pulse, your customers and your own teams is really important. Recognizing the crisis everybody's going through together.
And that was kind of brought home with the research that you were doing, the focus groups, the social, and bringing those insights in really to inform the decisions was critical. And then, the different team to kind of look at the horizon, or how you come out of this, and the importance of changing gears in your head, or somehow going into a different mode or room to think differently, because it is hard to lift yourself above the crisis and see beyond the next week, month, 6 months. But also, love that. Don't waste a crisis. And maybe building on that, how's the team maybe changed, or how have you built in that agility and that muscle to always be a little bit faster moving, a bit more responsive to changing conditions?
I've got a phenomenal team, and I am so proud of how we worked through crisis.
Mm.
I think it definitely made us stronger.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people changed jobs, and a
Mm.
lot of people also had to be team first, and that they'd say, okay, I need to lose someone from my team to go work on a delivery project, which meant they had to work faster or harder.
Yeah.
And I think people also embraced the opportunity to do something different.
Yeah.
And so we did do a lot of, okay, you're going to be now working 50% of your time on social impact for the region,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of people used it as an opportunity to build new skills and experiences in their career. I think one thing I learned though is you can't sustain that
Yeah.
kind of high pace and
Yeah.
adrenaline
Mm.
for months on end. It
No.
just becomes exhausting, and people get burnt out, their well-being goes, and then you're not as creative and you're all those things. And so going into the crisis, I think we didn't know how long it was going to go on for. So we were all in. What can we do? How can we help? Lean right in.
Mm.
You realize then, okay, we're months in now. And then it was a year in, and then it was 18.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I think was just part of that, ensuring that you had the intel coming in. At some point, consumers started getting really sick of COVID and really sick of safety messages. And actually, when we had too much safety messaging, it would actually have a negative impact. People would just be like, oh God, I want to hear another
Yeah.
something else on wearing a face mask. And so we tried to keep the balance right. Obviously, safety is a core value of ours. And so it will always be top of mind, something
Yep.
that we're always first with, but you can do too much, particularly when people are being inundated with those messages everywhere. And then we also realized people needed joy. They needed to smile. They needed to have some light relief. And our Uber Eats campaigns,
Yeah.
tend to be a lot of levity. They're really fun. They're
Yep.
all about entertainment. And I think they actually provided great, much needed relief, and people wanted something that was different at that time. We talked a lot about, gosh, is it the right time to be on air with this kind of tone? But the response was actually fantastic. And so the teams also really enjoyed doing something that was breakthrough and, and really something that we knew would delight customers.
Wow, there's been a lot covered in this interview so far. As a marketing leader, we know you like to spend more time taking action and less time taking notes. So we've got you covered. We packaged up all the tips, strategies, and resources from each episode into some beautifully crafted notes just for you. Not ugly AI-generated transcripts, but real notes taken by a real person on our team. To grab the notes, head on over to growthgenerators.io, look out for this podcast episode and download the notes. But be quick, they're only live for a few weeks after the episode airs. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, it's kind of the perfect time to be a bit more risk-taking in your approach, isn't it? Like, it's almost like the rule book's out the window. Like, we need to do things differently. Everything is changing. Either deliver a new message to our audience that may resonate for this point in time. And again, love the consumer insights that they're a bit sick of the safety and needed some lighthearted relief. Remember, I had Ed Bell on talking similar things like at Cathay Pacific, where when the crisis first hit, it was all about that safety of touch and the air filters, and the whole campaign was around care. But over time, you kind of got to start to build some more emotion back into the campaign, or make sure your brand's shining through beyond that messaging when the time is.
Yeah.
I'd love to now maybe get into the team. Before we do that, given your category experience, I guess, working for these tech companies like Google and YouTube and Symbian, Uber, what do you think are defining features of marketing teams within these large tech companies?
I think tech attracts smart people who love hard challenges, who are inspired by mission and values. And so it inspires dreamers, and the bigger the challenge, the better. So I think that's one area that I've seen in all facets of tech, but certainly also in marketing. There is also a build it mentality. You've got to be comfortable with something that doesn't exist yet. So you're going to have to build it. You've got to be able to act without perfect information. So the roadmap is probably weeks for something, not years. And so you've got to be agile and willing to test and learn. I think tech is also deeply collaborative. Again, you've got to build influence and drive everything gets done through collaboration, relationships, trust that you've built with
Yeah.
your cross-functional partners. As data-driven as it is,
Yeah.
everything still comes down to, have you built a strong, trusted, credible relationship? And so I like to build within tech. I really like to build diverse teams that come from a range of backgrounds. It's always great having people who have been trained in FMCG, but trained at Unilever or P&G. They just have such solid foundation, and that's really critical as well. You need to have team members. Ideally, it's the whole team members, but often with a diverse team, you will have different skill sets. But brand positioning and brief writing and strong strategy, those kind of fundamental skills everybody is going to need. But FMCG, I think, do it best.
Yeah.
And then, so having a few of them on the team, really important. Having people who have worked on a brand of reputation, on crisis, you're going to have to face that at some point.
Yeah.
And so again, have people have some experience there. And then, of course, you need really strong storytelling, strong flair for creative, people who can really bring the brand to life. And marketing, I find, within tech actually inspires internal teams as well as external. They can inspire product teams to look what's possible. I think even CEOs to think about pride of what your brand can stand for.
Yeah.
So that kind of storytelling, can you inspire people both internally and, of course, your customers with what your brand is and the proposition of your product?
Yep. Yeah. Beautiful. Sounds like a fantastic place to work. And that was fun. Getting into your team structure then. So given the makeup of some of the kind of characteristics of the kinds of people you look for, how is the team organized?
Yeah. So some organizations have moved towards this, and this is more extreme than I've seen, but it does work well. So we have brand and performance teams. This is two separate teams. I'm on the brand side. So this is long-term brand building, anything sort of from brand upper funnel, demand gen, consideration, right down to lower funnels. So this is covered. We report up into the CMO, Thomas Renice, who's my manager, who's absolutely fantastic, very visionary global CMO. And then there's a performance marketing team. They look after all of the channels, the direct response, programmatic, in-house trading, a team of absolute guns. And so while we work together, there's still two separate structures and separate expertise. And I think that works well in that it's optimized for speed, can and scale, right? So the performance marketing is very much scaled globally. On the brand side, we have global brand definition. We have global consistency in our core priorities for the business and metrics, but it's very locally executed. Uber is actually such a local brand. We have different local products. We're part of the infrastructure within cities and different cities, and it means different things in different places. And of course, I think the world also is becoming more and more local in a way, where people have been looking in different countries. And so it's been really important that we have local campaign development. So all of that happens in lots of different countries all over the world. And that sparks ideas globally too. The Tonight I'll Be Eating campaign was actually created in Australia about 5 years ago and was so successful in Australia, it then scaled globally and scaled to Japan, where I took it to Japan and Taiwan and then Hong Kong. And then it's also gone to Mexico and just such a kind of very Aussie feel of that campaign. The humor is so Australian, and yet it has been translated in different ways. So we try to ensure that while it's a global team, we embrace local innovation, and that can then be shared globally.
Yeah. Again, had Natalie Trong from Mercer on the show, and she was kind of talking about how to take brands through Asia and the differences in some of the markets, and drove home that importance of having the think global but local execution, and having the right expertise on the ground with a deep connection to that market and what's going to work in there, what isn't, and the ability to execute accordingly, which I think is
super important,
absolutely critical. And is that the case then? Is it kind of a hub and spoke where you might have a hub with some of your, core brand team in
Yeah.
a head office somewhere, and then you've got spokes with people on the ground in all your different markets?
Yes.
Yep.
So globally we've got all of our central teams in the
Mhm.
US. They're dotted around there, some in San Francisco, some in New York, and a bit in LA.
Yeah.
We then have in Asia, we also had distributed headquarters. So there's headquarters in Sydney, in Singapore, and in Gurgaon in India. I have a leadership team which has heads of country, so heads of market with all of the major markets that I work. I also have a regional team which does regional brand strategy, social, memberships. We then
Mhm.
have the functions. So anything that's a specialist function actually reports globally, but we have representation in the region and they sit on my leadership team. So
Mm.
that's media, analytics,
Yeah.
creative, and insights. Insights, super important one.
Yeah.
A marketing intelligence. So that works well because I think it allows you to have specialization,
Mhm.
but then also come together as a cross-functional leadership team. And then we have the country teams are really focused on executing campaigns that are right for the market, and they can be super localized.
Yeah. And so there are a lot of the pros. What are some of the challenges of the split between the brand and the performance team, if I dare
Yeah.
to ask?
Oh, of course, pros and cons in every decision. I just like there to be more pros than cons.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I think the challenge is that you are not going to have as buttoned up a full funnel campaign.
Yeah. Yep.
If you look at any one single campaign, if you ran all of that and designed it all from scratch as one campaign, I think you would design it differently and you
Yeah.
would have full end-to-end measurement and full funnel creative. I would say if you're a consumer in any one of our markets and you see our different brand touch points, they will be quite different.
Yeah.
And that's because we've optimized for speed. And in the case of performance marketing, optimized to return on ad spend. With my brand marketing eyes, I would look at it as, okay, this doesn't feel like the most coherent
Yeah.
experience of our brand.
Yeah.
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 So I think they're the areas. And where we have done experimentation, okay, what if we bring our upper funnel brand campaign assets the whole way
Yep.
through the funnel? And if we do that, there are advantages. Sometimes some things don't work as well. We've done that. And so we will continue to optimize it. It's just that we, at the moment, prefer to be in market quickly. And obviously there's lots of benefits with global scale too.
And obviously your relationship with the head of that area is going to be critical. So how do you go about building that trust and that relationship?
Super critical, and we work really well together. So we do meet regularly. I have representation from that team on my leadership team. I also meet with the global head of the performance and CRM marketing team regularly. And then we also sit on the global marketing leadership team. And there are lots of times where, it's just, and also we just know each other really well. So we're always on Slack and looking at things. And so there's some things that can be agreed at a country level. Do we want to increase spend or not? That sort of thing. We agree on what kind of pilots do we want to do. What do we want to test? Now, we can't test absolutely everything we want to because there's just not enough resource, but we all just agree on prioritization and just constantly improving. So that's the way I think about it. Just how do we have a strong relationship together? Do we have the same, of course, we've got the same goals and that we're wanting to drive growth in the business.
Yep.
And so, we agree on those objectives.
Yep.
It's just that brand marketing has a longer term focus.
Good. And then what about product engineering? So how does your team engage with them, and do you feed insights back to inform the product roadmap?
So when I was at YouTube, that was a daily, I think when you're in headquarters, that is a daily relationship to build.
Yeah.
At Uber, we actually do product marketing in region because we have products that are unique to our region. Taxi is one of them. Taxi actually started here. So this is actually getting booking a taxi through the Uber app.
Yeah.
And this is the primary mode of transport in Asia, in Hong Kong, Japan, Taiwan, and Korea. And then we have different products, these 2 and 3 wheelers in India.
Yep.
So our relationship with the product team is close there. We bring in, we do value proposition research, right?
Yep.
So we do a lot of research. We work with great partners. Actually, some of them are Australian partners, the behavioral architects who are excellent. So they've done a huge amount of work with us. So they work on looking at, okay, what are the opportunities with riders and drivers, both existing and prospective? What's the competitor set doing? Sometimes it's a brand new category. And so what does the category need?
Yeah.
And so we help the product team define the value proposition, the positioning, and then, okay, what are their key features that we're going to need? What would be our ideal?
Yeah.
We can't build that into the product now, but our aspiration in the next 6 months is that we'll be able to. And then we talk together, how likely is this?
Yeah.
Because as marketing, ideally, obviously, you want to have some kind of core distinction. If you have a differentiating feature, that's fantastic. Often that's hard to keep that relationship with product and building that out. We will market that product with this in mind. And so how can we ensure that we've got a really strong roadmap that fulfills that promise?
And then what about at the other end? So informing what the product should look like. What about the customer operations, or once people have become a rider or a first time user? Yeah. Do you work closely with customer ops to kind of drive retention?
I don't take on retention goals at
No.
the moment with the way we're structured. It is a huge part of the business. There's a lot of teams working on this. So they are the customer operations team, as you say. There's also within country, there are operations teams around drivers, riders and eaters and restaurant partners and so forth. And so they're really working hand in hand, passing back feedback to product teams. A lot of that is surfaced. I guess it's surfaced in different ways. It's actually something we've done recently with drivers is a huge sprint with the product team where we're trying to onboard a lot of drivers. And then there's we had a roadmap of things that we wanted fixing, and we wanted to try and surface as many bugs and opportunities as possible. And so we get everybody in the country to go through the system themselves and get feedback that they've seen from drivers. So we have lots of channels where we can surface quickly, and then, product team can work. Okay, we're going to focus now on the UK or on Mexico or whatever. Let's just get through, crunch through this big long list, constantly improving. And so it's been quite interesting to see that muscle across the business. There's a Slack channel at the moment that I've seen that's really fun, which is on driver partner stories. And so people share the experiences they've had just coming into work in an Uber. What have they heard? What are they hearing? So that you may not hear from that, drivers by the time if they have a complaint, it may take too long to get there. And so they're having conversations all the time. And it's also a good way to surface just the incredible wealth of stories about driver partners, because they blow my mind. They are such amazing go-getters. They've all got different side gigs and just incredible stories to share.
Yeah.
So it's good to see those too.
It's funny, actually. It reminds me of a couple of years ago, I did the product course by General Assembly, and our mock assignment was, to look at enhancements to a kind of a favorite app. And I think me and a team actually chose Uber. And I remember doing that research. Like we're in the cars, like just asking drivers what worked, what didn't, and asking other riders, how can this be improved? And it's fundamental, but we often forget the importance of that first-hand research. You speak to your customer and learn from them what works and what doesn't. Such an important lesson.
So important. Yeah. I love that you chose Uber.
It was fun. All right, we are fast running out of time. It's been such a good conversation. I'd love to just touch on culture, though. I know we talked a lot about the team and how they work and engage with product customer operations. But this creating a high performance marketing culture, I know it's something you're passionate about, as am I. Creating a culture that adapts, takes risks, is creative, thrives in a crisis, and leverages the benefits of multicultural diversity. We've talked about some of those initiatives so far, but coming back to your time at Uber, I think, let's get into that. How have you gone about developing a high performance marketing culture in the team?
So all those things you mentioned, I'm big believers in, and team is everything. I'm so impressed with the people that I see and hire and interview with are so incredibly hungry and want more self-development and are so inspired to keep learning and bettering themselves. And so feeding that passion is a huge part of my job, and it's a big responsibility, and you never quite feel like you're doing enough. I think what's fundamental for a high performance team culture is firstly investing in people. So hiring incredible people who inspire you, people who you think, I'm going to work for that person one day. That's the bar.
Yeah,
I'm always like,
that's awesome.
is this
Yeah.
person going to keep me on my toes? Once you hire incredible people, and then really get to know them, because you are going to be in the weeds on things. You're going to be in crisis together. You're going to be working on incredible moonshots together. And so so appreciating that everybody is different and that everyone has their own style and their own spikes and strengths. And so I like to be very open about those. So invest in things like insights, discovery, making sure that everybody knows how other people in the team tick, what their superpowers are, what their passions are, who they should go to for different things. And so being very open about that, having conversations about it, sharing presentations about it. That's one thing. Then celebrating diversity and celebrating, we've got a very multicultural team. It is part of our strength. I've always been a big believer in diversity. I think if you have a team where you all went to the same university and you've all kind of got the same background, highly likely that that's going to be a super comfortable team. You're going to love working with each other and probably a very efficient team.
Yeah.
But potentially not the team that's going to do really different things that surprise you. So with diversity, you also get tension, you get misunderstanding, so I think get through that and celebrate it. And so one thing I've done in our team, because as I say, it's all from all over across the region, lots of different backgrounds, we do something called creative cultural immersions. And so we have different country teams taking the rest of the region through their country. So for instance, in India, we did 50 years of Indian history told through advertising. So interesting. Last week, I had the Japan team taking us through things you should know about Japanese culture. And I've worked in Japan for 15 years and I didn't know half the stuff. So eye-opening, and it makes the rest of the team feel so inspired and leaned in and enjoy working with each other, invest in learning and development. I think all of those things, as we've probably marketing has ended up specializing quite a lot. And so actually some of the fundamental basic skills can get a bit lost. And so ensuring that everybody has basic knowledge of brief writing, strategy development, leadership. I think that learning and development is really important. And encouraging the teams to share their own learning and development plans. That's just part of the culture. I think then, so first is people. The second is operations. If an operation works, if the process works, it becomes culture.
Yeah.
And this is not my natural state. I have to acquire this in. I have to have people to work with me to develop this. I know I see the value in it. So getting the frameworks in place, the decision-making guidelines, all that sort of stuff, just I think helps people have more freedom. And then finally, I think investing in just communication, just making sure that you're regularly communicating together, you're sharing great work, that you're giving shout outs, giving opportunities for people to share their work. That builds a wonderful culture of pride as well, where you're all hungry for strong accountability, strong performance, but also just be really proud of great work that you've done. And of course, also sharing things that haven't worked. That's always hard. No, owning failures. I'm very open about those.
Again, so many great lessons in there, the people part and the diversity. It's been a theme on the show, and the importance of that, and 100% agree that you need that diversity in thinking. You need that creative tension. And I love the way you're building that cultural understanding, because that just builds empathy amongst each other, which makes communication so much easier to build those strong relationships. Investing in L&D and investing in people and doing those personal strengths or profiles, all that research. Again, I think we do all this great research on our personas and our customers, but we don't often invest the same amount in our people to really deeply understand the people on the team, the superpowers they bring, some of their spikes, as you mentioned, and what makes them tick, what ticks them off. Again, so crucial to high performance teams just to have that understanding, so you know how to communicate with someone, how they like to be communicated with, what might frustrate them, how they think. So you can appreciate that difference and then make sure you're leveraging the superpowers to know, who do I need to bring into this project? Who does think completely different to me? If someone's more highly creative, do we need someone to counterbalance that with a bit of risk, or what do we need to consider in this particular piece of communication? And the operations part, I love that. That comment around the frameworks for decision and the processes actually gives people freedom. I do work in my consulting around lean process redesign, and that is mapping decision-making processes, briefing processes for marketing teams. And some think it's a bit laborious, like, why do we need to map this out? Think it gives them restriction, but it's one of those strange things where the guardrails actually gives people more freedom because they know what the process is and how to follow it and when they need to get approvals. They don't need to keep going back to someone where that may actually not be needed.
So one other thing that I realized too that I enjoy doing, putting together teams or individuals who wouldn't normally work together. See what happens. And it may surprise you. And people really enjoy it, I think, and learn from each other. So I've done that a bit as well. Putting together very different teams. And it gives people an opportunity to do something different too.
Yeah, I like that. And it kind of comes back to Agile, the cross-functional teams with different strengths, putting them together. Well, and before we get to our fast five, I'm going to ask one more question. I believe as leaders, we learn by our mistakes and others can learn by ours, so I don't have to make the same ones. With that in mind, what is your greatest leadership regret, mistake, or lesson, and what did you learn from it?
I think I spoke before at the start about a pivotal moment, moving from Australia to the US. And I do look back on that first 6 months. It was really hard. I worked till midnight every night. I tried to understand the business as quickly as possible. I just found it hard work, hard to build relationships, hard to influence, get things done. And I think a mistake, I mean, I look back on it, and maybe I had to go through that pain to come to this realization. I'm sure I did. But I think I had to realize, I wish that I had realized sooner that everything is confidence. You actually need to just really acknowledge it's hard, but then acknowledge that it is better to make a decision than not make one. When you see something that doesn't, for instance, I don't know, a marketing plan or a roadmap or whatever it is, and it doesn't exist, your job is to build it. And I think I waited a bit too long. I think I was like, after 6 months, I was like, okay. So the job is to start from scratch and get it and build it. This is great. What an amazing opportunity. Yeah. So I think that's how I've approached things since. When I've seen when something is hard, or you like dive in and get started. And actually it is better to act. It is better to decide. It's better to involve others and make mistakes as you go and own it and move on rather than sort of being hesitant. That's
powerful lesson. So I think as leaders, we like to spend that first little bit of time understanding, right? Seeking first to understand and building relationships and building the trust. And but you probably are facing a bit of, imposter syndrome, going, shit, what have I got into? Can I do this? Am I the right person? What am I meant to be doing?
Second guessing and all that stuff. And actually everyone's waiting there for you. Just
get started. Get started a bit sooner. Like that. Okay. So it is now time for our fast five. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Do it.
Oh, what do you believe are 3 essential capabilities or criteria of a high performance team?
Firstly, if it's a marketing team, the first is insights. Know the user, know the magic, connect the two. I learned that from Google. I think it is the foundation of every brief. And it means that you will go in there with an empathetic mindset. I think the second is communication. I can't think of a job where you don't need to be a powerful communicator. So if you're not good at it, learn how to do it, practice it, get coaching in it. You have to be able to pitch your idea or your strategy or whatever it is quickly and for different audiences. And the third is collaboration. You've got to be able to work with people. You've got to be able to workshop, figure out how to engage different types of people. And so I'd say those 3.
And how would you describe your team's culture in one word?
Go-getter.
Go-getter. Like it. What is one metric you've successfully used to track and measure team performance?
Engagement, I think. Are people really engaged with the work, feel proud about what they're doing, know how it ladders up to priorities? Those are really important.
Critical. And what is one skill or capability you've learned recently that you wish you developed sooner in your career?
So this is aligned with the comment around
Mm.
building frameworks and guardrails and so forth. To be
Mhm.
frank, my natural state is autonomy. I just want total freedom.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
but I realized that is not possible. And actually, so I've learned rapid framework and racy and roles and
Yeah.
responsibilities. It's something I've actually fought against
Yeah.
because I like breaking rules, but
Yeah.
I can absolutely see the value of it when
Yeah.
there are clear
Yeah.
clear expectations about who is doing what.
Yeah.
It does unlock so much more.
It is, again, it's just funny, that dilemma that you think the freedom is what people want, but sometimes the gray caused by the crossover between two roles
Oh,
or people
too messy.
creates the friction. Yeah.
Yeah. And the more, I think you can do freedom when it's one person. But when
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can't. Yeah.
Yeah. And what book or books have you read you found yourself recommending to others, or you think our audience would gain value?
So my two that I recommend to everyone, firstly, The Culture Map by Erin Meyer
Mm.
is so fantastic. It's very easy, a data-backed view of how different cultures collaborate, lead, and work. And
Mm.
so if you work with lots of different countries, different
Yep.
country teams, it's a absolute must. The second one, which is on every marketer's shelf, is How Brands Grow
Oh, yeah.
by
Yeah.
Byron
Byron
Sharp.
Sharp. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Great.
so we're all disciples. I mean, we are with a grain of salt, but largely it's been
Yeah.
a clear backbone of how
Yeah.
we've built the brand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great recommendations. Fantastic. Well, Lucinda, thank you so much for coming on the show and making time on your holiday. I've loved the background noises. I've been transported to the Central Coast with you, and our listeners have as well. It's been lovely. Thanks for sharing your amazing career from Symbian to Google to YouTube to Uber, and the lessons you've learned from that in terms of different cultures in different countries, how people think and operate from, really product-led engineering companies, and balancing that with the customer centricity, the big vision that some of those companies have, and the passion of the staff that they attract through that. The learning from COVID-19 and the global task force, and how to move quickly, and the agility and separation from the strategic kind of longer term planning. And then love diving into how you work in your team alongside the performance team. And lastly, finishing off on culture. I think there's been a ton of insights for our audience to gain value from in this episode. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Ty. So much fun. Thank you for the opportunity.
You've been listening to Lean Mean Marketing Teams with Ty Hayes. If you love the show, please remember to hit subscribe so that you can discover more tips and strategies to build a high-performance marketing team. And if you're feeling generous, please tell someone about the show who you think would benefit. We're on a mission to help CMOs build their dream team and enable marketers to do their best work. And we appreciate your help in spreading the word.